everyone, it's Justine and welcome to a new video. It's the first video that I filmed in my new craft area and I'm excited to get started today on making this Sympathy card. I'm using the beloved Daisy stamp set from Altenew. This is a beautiful layering stamp that has 3 different types of daisies that you can stamp out. Also has this mask stencil available and coordinating dies. I just love how Altenew has more and more of these sets available because they really make things quite versatile. Additionally, inside you have the stamp pocket that folds out into a project idea guide, which I love as well, so it gives you several ideas on how you can use the stamp set. Additionally, it also comes with this layering guide, and it shows you a little bit how to line everything up. And I absolutely love as well that on the transfer sheet, like the sheet where the stamps are printed on, it also says things like A1, A2, A3, so you know which stamps belong to which one. Now these stencil mask guides are awesome because you have not only the stencil, but you get these little masked pieces as well that you can use over top of your stamps, and I'm going to show you how to use those throughout the video. Now I'm going to get started on stamping. I'm going to be using a couple of brand new inks. I got some inks from the stamp market and I had been recommended them by several friends who said they were very similar to the Catherine Pooler inks, and if you know, those are my favorite inks to use at the moment because they don't have a felt pad and they have a foam pad, and I find you just get more ink on your stamps. And these are quite similar, and I find the colors a little bit more muted though, a little bit more on the pastel side, and I found them to be different enough from my regular Catherine Pooler inks to justify getting them. So I went ahead and grabbed the Daisy stamp, and I'm going to show you today how you can use one ink pad to create 3 different colors for layering stamps. So no need to think that when you have a layering stamp you need to have 3 shades of a certain color. You don't have to, and at the moment, because half my stuff is shipping here from the other side of the world, I don't have that many ink pads with me, so this was a perfect technique to show off today. So let's get started in the stamping itself. I'm going to use the Party Pink ink from the Stamp Market. This is the brightest in the collection, and I'm going to stamp that first layer. I'm going to set it back on my sheet, and I'm going to grab stamp A2 because I'm stamping the A daisy. So they're all labeled so you know which one's which. You can also follow the layering guide if you have any trouble layering them. The blue lines on the layering guide show where they should line up perfectly. Now, I personally find that this is super easy to line up for the stamp because this particular stamp here is the same size as its previous, so it was quite easy for me. And then I stamped it the second time using that Party Pink ink once again. So I'm using this ink 3 times, this ink pad, but layering over top, because when you stamp the same color over and over again, it gets darker and darker. There are a few different variations on how you can do this technique or how you can make it more interesting, but at the moment I'm focusing on some cards that require not many supplies in order to do them. So that was A1, 2, and 3 to stamp the petals of the daisy. A4, 5, and 6 belong to the center. I'm using Citrine. This is another beautiful color from the Stamp Market, and I'm stamping this 3 times as well. This has got like a yellow tinge with a little bit of a green tinge, almost like a pea soup color, but a pretty pea soup color if that such a thing exists. So again, grabbing all 3 of these layers, stamping them with the same shade. I really love the depth that this creates, and because I'm not using 3 different inks, the depth is there, but it's a little more subtle than using a light, medium, and dark ink. I'm going to grab some repositionable adhesive, and I put it on the back of this stencil, or this mask area of the stencil, and I put some of the adhesive on the stamp itself. That way it's guaranteed to kind of stay in place. I'm going to grab my second ink, or my second daisy now, and I'm going to be stamping in some Melon ink from the Stamp Market. Now I find with these mask stencils, because they are the same thickness as a regular stencil, I find the mask to be a little on the thick side. I kind of prefer using masking paper because then I don't have to worry about getting a little bit of a white line in between my flowers because it's so much thinner using masking paper. But for cards in a hurry, this is absolutely perfect, and if you push quite hard on your Misti, you're going to get it near perfect. And I'm going to show you a little trick on how you can get it to look a little bit better if you have some white spots in between like I do. So I'm grabbing layer number 2, so this is B2 now, and B3, to make the layering more of a depth. And you'll see that the mask up at the top I'm using to keep my pink daisy that I've stamped already safe. So I think you're getting the hang of this, so I'm going ahead and skipping to the third flower. This time I decided to use the Citrine ink, which I've been using in the centers of the previous two daisies. And I'm going to stamp the center of this one using the Melon ink, so I'm switching things up a little bit. And once again, I'm doing the exact same thing, so I'm going to skip ahead to the end of stamping the daisy. Now when I remove all of the masks, I have them here like this. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the little cluster it's made. I'm going to return the masks though to their area because I'm going to be stamping the stems of the daisies. To make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to shift my card panel up to the top so I can have the stem easily hang down. And I'm going to stamp the stem 3 times because there are 3 flowers, kind of obvious. And the masks are going to keep things nice and easy and keep them all in focus. So you want to make sure that it makes sense where you're laying down the stem. You need that to be going towards the center of the daisy or else it's going to look a little bit weird. And so this one here up at the top, I really had to pay particular attention to because when I had made this card the first time, I had stamped it completely ridiculously because I wanted the stems to be evenly spaced apart. But not having the stems easily spaced apart worked to my advantage because I was then able to add some of the leaves quite easily in between because I find the leaves in this set are quite large. Now as you can see, I've stamped 2 of the leaves already, but I'm going to go in now and stamp the third one so you can see how it works. The leaves are super easy because they're just 2 layers. So you stamp one and then you line up the one side with the jagged edges and stamp it again. It just kind of creates half of the leaf in a shadow. So now that that's all finished, I'm going to go ahead and remove the areas. I'm also going to grab a water brush pen. This is from Altenew's water brush collection set, but they're sold separately as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of add the ink in between the flowers. And where I had that little bit of a white area, I'm just going to dull it down a little bit using some of the color from my wet brush. Not the most perfect solution, but definitely looks better than before. Now to create some interest for this card, I decided to use the Altenew Fine Frames Cover die. It's absolutely one of my favorite dies on the planet because there's never been anything made that I know of that's like it, and I think it just creates such elegant features on your card. Now I'm going to be using some of Tonic Studio's gold cardstock. This is the sort of matte version, or it's called Satin Finish cardstock. And there's also a mirror that is another type of cardstock that is shiny and reflective. So depending which one you want to use here is completely up to you. But the reason why I love this so much is because when you finish cutting it, it creates all of these frames. Now these frames come in different sizes and thicknesses. So you have one that is just a couple of millimeters, I would say like 3, and the other one's maybe 2 or maybe 2 and 4. So some are really thin and some are a little on the thicker side, but they create these gorgeous frames. And what I love about them as well is even though I only need 1 or 2 for one card, it cuts them all out at the same time. So I get some extras to use on future cards. I tend to hang them on a hook in my craft room, and then I just grab them whenever I need them. You can experiment as to which size frame you want. It just kind of depends on the look that you're going for. Are you trying to frame in the flowers? Are you trying to just add a border on the background? Do you want something thicker, thinner? Because whatever you do, you're changing the focal point a little bit on how your card is going to look in the very end. Now I'm going here with some Connect glue from Gina K, and I'm just going along the sides here. And I'm going to glue this right on top of my card after I add a thin layer of adhesive. Now in the end, I did end up actually adding an additional frame to it to kind of make it look a little bit more interesting and to cover up a little bit of adhesive that I accidentally got on my card because I don't have an adhesive remover anymore. But yeah, that'll be coming eventually when my boxes get shipped here with my craft items. So moving on to my sentiment, I grabbed this Sentiment Strips stamp from Altenew. This has a whole bunch of different occasions and a really small font, which I love. And I noticed that the sentiments here all go horizontal and some of them are quite long, and the ones I wanted to use was a little bit too long for my liking. So what I ended up needing to do was a little bit of stamp surgery, and I ended up cutting my stamp in half in order for it to fit. Off screen, I ended up using a craft knife to do it just because I can't find my scissors at the moment, but I was able to just tear away the stamp, and now I have it in the size that I want. So I have the With Deepest and then Sympathy on the next line. If you're ever uncertain whether your sentiments are straight or not, you can just use the grid lines on your Misti to see if they are or not. I find those grid lines super, super helpful. So I'm going ahead and inking up using some black Versafine ink with Deepest Sympathy over top of my flowers. I didn't want to risk doing another stamp to make it a bit darker, but I think it stamped perfectly the first time anyway, so I'm not too concerned. I'm now going ahead and mounting my card base onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch Neenah Solar White 110 pound cardstock, so a little thicker than the card panel itself. Now I have a beautiful white frame around it. Even though you might not be able to see it all that great on the screen, it looks really pretty. I'm going to customize the back of my card by stamping my personal stamp on here. Now there are lots of companies out there that do these stamps. So Susie Stamps, if you just email them, they will make you one, which is what I did, and that's where my stamp comes from. And Unity Stamps does them as well, and there are several stores anyway that do custom stamps if you ever want to get your name or something to put on the back. I also went ahead and grabbed a glitter pen from Nuvo, and this is just adding some subtle sparkle to the floral petals, and I thought that that added a little bit of extra detail. I had originally thought about adding sequins to the card, but I decided that I wanted to keep things pretty plain. And you can really see now that it's up close how I kind of blended in that white space between the pink and the melon daisy. And I think that that looks pretty decent considering it was a huge white space before. And so you can kind of see that subtle shimmer there that is coming on the card. Absolutely stunning. Now I still wasn't entirely satisfied with the card, so I did decide to go with a second gold frame here. And I grabbed one of the thicker ones and I added adhesive already to it. And I'm going to place it kind of off center and really make that center a focal piece now, almost as if it's framed completely. I love the way that this card turned out. I think it looks absolutely beautiful when it's all said and done. And I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial and my little test run of how videos are going to look in the craft room where my desk is right now. So there's a whole bunch of things to consider, like lighting and reflections and things like that. So I'm going to be playing around for the next few weeks for sure. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and if you haven't already, be sure to go ahead and check out my 50,000 subscriber video hop. I'm going to be drawing some prizes soon, so you'll want to get in your comments there for the chance to win a $50 gift card. I have 5 of them up for grabs. If you're interested in checking out another video, please check out the suggested video below, or you can here to subscribe to my channel.